So I think one of the coolest studies out there on arch height was done by a group of Harvard researchers. And what they did is they went to Kenya a couple of years ago. And as you may or may not know, um, about 50% of Kenyan kids are now running to school with shoes, and about half of the kids now run to school barefoot. And so we've got that dynamic going on. It gave us a perfect window for research. And so what these Harvard researchers did is they went to Kenya and they tracked a control group of kids that ran to school barefoot, and then they had a group that ran to school with shoes. So they had these two separate groups. And what they found after following them for quite some time is just fascinating. They found that the kids that had shoes, they 61% of them got injured over the course of the year of the study, and their arches were fairly average to possibly high. So on average, their arches were average to high. And then what they found is the kids that ran to school barefoot, only 8% of them got injured over the course of the study. So almost 8 times lower. And their arches were flat or low. And I was actually talking to Olympian Anthony Familetti about this on a podcast a year or two ago. And he's like, well, yeah, I remember going to the Track and Field Hall of Fame, and they have foot casts of all the world champions throughout all the years. And I was like, what's this have to do with the study? He's like, they all got flat feet. He's like, all these world champion runners, they all have low arches, they all have flat feet. It's very, very common. And I think as we get into looking at it, I think what we find is these feet have more muscle in them, and the feet get used so much more that the arches actually fill in. So you have people that would have higher arches actually develop lower arches as their feet get stronger. Not that their arch is technically lower, but it looks lower because there's more muscle there. On the flip side, you get people with unnaturally flat feet, weak feet. And as they develop muscle in there, they actually tend to, from what I've seen, they tend to develop a little bit of an arch, just like you were talking about earlier. So it's kind of a really interesting dichotomy there, where you just have, as the feet get stronger, they tend to gravitate a little bit more towards the middle. But I would say they gravitate towards the lower side of the arch spectrum. And the more I look at indigenous peoples and people who, there's still almost 1 billion people on the planet that don't wear shoes. Most of them don't have arches. Arches, my opinion after looking at it for so long is that arches are actually developed by wearing shoes in a lot of people.